The marble floors of the Aurelia Mall gleamed like still water under crystal lights. Every reflection was perfect, until a child's scream shattered the quiet. Two security guards dragged a small black girl across the floor, her legs kicking, her little hands clutching a worn teddy bear missing one eye. The ice cream cone she'd been holding fell and splattered across the pristine tiles, a single stain against perfection. "Please. I just wanted to see the lights." Her voice cracked, raw with fear. Every shopper froze. A woman holding designer bags hesitated. A couple stopped mid-step near the fountain. Even the music, soft Christmas jazz, faded as if embarrassed to keep playing. The girl couldn't have been more than 8. Her jacket was too big for her, sleeves swallowing her arms, sneakers untied, one lace dragging like a trail of shame. The guards, both tall and uniformed, looked almost robotic, trained to remove disturbances swiftly and without emotion. "Where are your parents?" one barked. I just wanted to look," she whimpered. "I wasn't gonna touch anything." The guard sighed, annoyed, "You can't just wander in here. This is private property." She struggled, clutching the teddy tighter. The crowd whispered, but no one stepped forward. No one ever did. A phone camera flashed. Another person began recording. A man in a suit murmured, "They should call social services." A woman muttered, "Poor thing." The mall's air conditioning hummed, filling the silence that followed the girl's sob. The echo of her cry bounced off marble and glass like something sacred being broken. One of the guards tugged harder. Her small shoe slipped off. The teddy bear hit the floor, face down. "Please, don't take me," she cried again, voice trembling. For a heartbeat, everything paused. The reflection of her face shimmered in the polished floor beneath her, a tear sliding down her cheek, mixing with melted ice cream. A small boy watching with his mother whispered, "Mom, why are they being mean to her?" No one answered. At the far end of the hall, the elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Out stepped Adrian Cole, the billionaire owner of Aurelia Mall, pressed suit, calm eyes, posture of someone used to control. He didn't look angry. Just tired. His assistant spoke quickly beside him about numbers, investors, projections, things that didn't make sound compared to the child's sob. As Adrian's polished shoes clicked across the marble, he noticed the commotion. His gaze landed on the child just as one of the guards muttered, "Sir, she's been loitering. No parents. No money." Adrian's steps slowed. The girl looked up, eyes wide, wet, defiant through the tears. Something about that look stopped him cold. The teddy bear lay at his feet. Without realizing, his shoe nudged it slightly, smearing ice cream across the floor. The tiny bear's one eye seemed to stare up at him. "She's just a kid," he said quietly. The guards turned, unsure if they'd heard right. Adrian's voice, calm but sharp, echoed through the marble halls. "Let her go." Silence. Even the crowd seemed to hold its breath. The guards hesitated, then released her arms. The girl stumbled forward, catching herself on her knees, clutching the teddy tight again. Adrian crouched slightly, meeting her eye level. He said nothing. Neither did she. Just the faint sound of the fountain behind them and the soft thud of her heart against the quiet. That was the moment the mall, and Adrian Cole's perfect, ordered world, cracked open. The mall returned to motion after the incident, music fading back in, whispers scattering like leaves. But Adrian Cole didn't move. He stood there, staring at the small girl sitting cross-legged on the floor, holding her teddy like a shield. Her name, he'd later learn, was Zara. But right then, she was just the little girl who didn't belong in his world. He handed a crisp handkerchief from his pocket to one of the guards. "Get her something to drink," he said. The man hesitated, confused. Billionaires didn't give orders like that over a stray child. But Adrian's tone left no room for discussion. When the security team stepped back, Adrian turned and walked toward the escalator, his assistant rushing to keep up. "Sir, the investors are waiting." "The Q4 meeting." Adrian didn't answer. He just said, almost to himself, "How does a child even end up in here?" That night, the skyline outside his penthouse shimmered like a field of stars trapped in glass. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city below, neat, distant, perfect. Inside, not a thing was out of place. Black marble counters. Chrome furniture. Everything cold, expensive, and lifeless. He poured himself a drink, the clink of ice echoing in the silence. On the news, a reporter discussed holiday spending, record profits, mall expansions. The words economic boom and consumer confidence filled the room, empty noise. But behind her voice, Adrian kept seeing Zara's tear-streaked face. Her voice, "Please, I just wanted to see the lights." He turned off the TV. Across town, Zara sat by a flickering lamp in a cramped one-room apartment. The walls were cracked, patched with old posters to hide the damp. Her aunt, Miss Lila, worked a night shift cleaning offices. Zara had left the house earlier that evening when the lights went out again. She'd walked all the way to the mall because she could see it glowing from the hill, a castle of light in a city of dark. Now she sat on the edge of her mattress, tracing her teddy bear's stitches. "Don't worry, Mr. Buttons," she whispered. "They didn't mean to be mean." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small marble, cloudy but shining under the lamp. She smiled faintly and rolled it between her fingers. "One day we'll have a window like theirs," she told her bear. Meanwhile, Adrian opened his laptop. A report waited. Quarterly performance charts, rental profits, marketing projections. The Aurelia Mall, his crown jewel, had broken every sales record. Yet tonight, the victory felt hollow. He clicked another folder, an old file labeled Coal Developments, founding year. A photo filled the screen, his father standing beside a smaller, younger Adrian. Behind them, a banner read, "Building Prosperity for All." He stared at that phrase until the letters blurred. Prosperity for all, or for people like him? Adrian's phone buzzed. A message from his assistant, the child from earlier. Security logged her as a vagrant. "Do you want to file a report?" He typed back one word. "No." Then he shut the laptop. The next morning, Zara walked to school wearing the same oversized jacket. Her shoes squeaked with every step. The other kids whispered when she passed, not cruelly, just curiously. She smiled anyway. Zara always smiled. Her teacher, Ms. Perez, noticed the bruise on her wrist, faint, the size of a guard's grip. "Zara, what happened?" "I tripped," she said softly. Ms. Perez didn't press. The school had too many stories like hers and too few people to listen. At noon, Adrian sat in his office, top floor of the coal industries tower, the city glittering beneath him. His assistant entered with a fresh coffee. "Sir, press wants a statement about the mall security incident. Someone posted the video online. It's getting views." Adrian looked up. "Views?" "Yes, sir. People are arguing about whether she was treated unfairly." He leaned back, jaw tightening. "Send me the video." The assistant nodded, left. A few seconds later, the clip appeared on his monitor, shaky phone footage, echoing audio. There she was. Small. Crying. He closed the laptop again. For the second time in 2 days, the silence in his office felt heavier than usual. That evening, Zara's aunt returned home, exhausted. She scolded Zara for wandering into the mall, then hugged her tight. "You scared me half to death," she whispered. "Promise you'll stay away from there." Zara nodded, but her eyes flicked toward the window where the mall lights shimmered in the distance. From opposite worlds, both lay awake that night, a billionaire surrounded by everything money could buy, and a little girl who only wanted to see the lights. Between them stretched a city divided by glass, wealth, and silence. But destiny was already stitching their worlds together, thread by fragile thread. The next morning broke crisp and cold. Sunlight spilled over the glass dome of Aurelia Mall, painting it in gold. Inside, everything gleamed, polished storefronts, gloved baristas, sparkling jewelry counters. The air smelled faintly of vanilla and money. Adrian Cole's black sedan pulled up at the private entrance. He rarely visited unannounced, but something inside him stirred since that night, an unease he couldn't name. His assistant greeted him nervously. "Sir, the holiday gala team is waiting on your approval for the decorations." "Let's walk," Adrian said. "I want to see it myself." He adjusted his cufflinks as he stepped into the atrium, the kind of place built to make ordinary people feel small. His reflection shimmered in every window, surrounded by gold and glass. Yet for the first time, it didn't look like success. It looked like distance. At the same moment, Zara stood outside the same mall, pressed against the revolving doors. Her aunt had left early for work, and Zara had decided to return one last time. She wanted to say thank you, to the man who told the guards to let her go. She held the teddy bear tightly, its ear now stitched with blue thread. In her other hand, she clutched a crumpled paper napkin from the cafe. It had Adrian's initials on it, AC, she'd found it after he left. In her mind, it felt like a clue. Inside, she walked carefully, her small sneakers squeaking on the shiny floor. Her eyes widened at every display, lights, ornaments, fountains dancing with color. But the security team noticed her almost immediately. "Hey, hey. It's that same girl," one guard whispered, stepping forward. Zara froze. "I just wanted to." Before she could finish, a hand gripped her arm again. On the other side of the hall, Adrian was reviewing the massive Christmas tree setup. The decorators waited for his approval, but he barely heard them. Something else caught his ear, a familiar, frightened voice. He turned. Down the corridor, a small crowd had gathered again. 2 guards. A crying child. For a split second, his body tensed, not again. He started walking. Slow at first, then faster. The closer he got, the clearer the scene became. Zara was standing by the jewelry counter, her arm held tight by a guard who looked almost apologetic. "I told you, sir," the guard said to his partner. "She keeps sneaking in. Says she's looking for someone." The girl's face lifted. And then, like light cutting through fog, she saw him. "Hey," she cried. "It's you." Adrian froze mid-step. Her voice carried through the atrium. Shoppers turned. Phones came out again. Zara tried to pull away from the guard, pointing straight at Adrian. "You're the man from yesterday. You said I could stay." The guard's grip loosened in confusion. "Sir, you know her." Adrian looked from the guard to the girl, and suddenly, the distance between marble and dirt, billionaire and child, felt painfully thin. He stepped forward slowly. "Let her go." "Sir, she's been." "I said, let her go." His tone was sharper this time, steel under calm. The guard immediately released her arm. Zara ran to him, clutching her teddy like a secret. The crowd murmured, a billionaire and a child, an image too strange for ordinary eyes. Adrian crouched down, lowering himself to her level. "What are you doing here?" he asked quietly. She blinked, nervous but determined. "I wanted to find you." "Why?" She pulled out the crumpled napkin with his initials. "Because you dropped this. And because I didn't get to say thank you." For a moment, Adrian didn't know what to say. His throat tightened unexpectedly. Behind them, cameras clicked. Somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered. "That's Adrian Cole. The billionaire." He glanced up, shoppers staring, security frozen, his assistant pale. It wasn't just a scene, it was a spectacle. He looked back down at Zara. Her face, dirty, glowing, alive, cut through every polished thing around them. She tugged gently on his sleeve. You looked sad yesterday. Are you still sad? His chest tightened. No one ever asked him that. Not investors, not friends, not even family. I don't know, he said truthfully. Zara nodded solemnly, like she understood sadness better than most adults did. Then, softly, you can borrow my marble if you want. It makes bad days better. She reached into her pocket and placed the cloudy marble in his hand. Adrian just stared at it, something so small, so human, so out of place in the sterile glow of his world. The moment held, fragile and real. Then a voice broke it. Sir, his assistant said quietly, we should get you to your meeting. Adrian didn't move. His gaze stayed on the girl. The marble felt strangely heavy in his palm. Finally, he looked at her and said softly. Come with me. Her eyes widened. Where? He glanced around, the crowd still watching. He didn't have an answer that made sense yet. Somewhere you can sit, he said. And just like that, for the first time in years, Adrian Cole, the man who lived in glass towers and spoke in numbers, reached out his hand. Zara took it without hesitation. The two of them walked across the shining mall floor, a billionaire and a child with a one-eyed bear. Leaving behind whispers, cameras, and a world that couldn't quite decide which of them didn't belong. That was the moment everything changed. For her, it was the day someone finally listened. For him, it was the day silence stopped feeling safe. Adrian led Zara through the gleaming corridors of the mall. Shoppers moved aside, whispering, not out of respect, but curiosity. The sight was strange, a billionaire in a tailored coat walking beside a small girl clutching a threadbare teddy bear. They stopped at a quiet corner cafe, one of his franchises, though he had never actually eaten there himself. Get her something warm, he told the waiter. His tone was steady but softer than usual. And, ice cream. Vanilla. Zara hesitated before sitting, her feet dangling from the edge of the velvet chair. She looked around at the shining countertops, the glass display filled with pastries she'd only ever seen in pictures. The waiter placed a mug of hot chocolate in front of her, topped with whipped cream and chocolate curls. Her eyes widened. That's for me. Adrian nodded once. You said you wanted to see the lights yesterday. I think you deserve to sit under them too. Zara took a slow sip. Her small hands wrapped around the mug like it was treasure. It's warm, she whispered, smiling. Adrian watched her quietly. Something about the way she sipped, careful not to waste a drop, stirred an ache in his chest he hadn't felt in years. He glanced out the window. The mall glowed with morning light, polished and perfect, like every part of his empire. But for the first time, it didn't make him proud. It made him uneasy. Where's your mother? He asked gently. Zara's smile faded. She stared into her drink. She's sleeping in the stars. He froze. What do you mean? She went away. A long time ago. Zara's voice was small, but steady. Aunt Lila says she's watching me. So I wave sometimes, just in case. Her words cut through the noise of clinking cups and espresso steam like a bell toll. Adrian didn't know how to respond. He wasn't used to sadness he couldn't fix with a signature or a check. He finally said, "That's very brave of you." She shrugged. "I don't feel brave. I just miss her." Adrian felt the marble she had given him earlier, still in his pocket. He turned it between his fingers under the table, grounding himself with its coolness. A waitress approached with a small plate of cookies, shaped like stars. Zara gasped. They look like her. Who? Adrian asked. My mom. She used to say when people are kind, they shine a little. Like stars. Adrian looked at her, then at the cookies, then back at her again. Something about that sentence stayed lodged in his chest. He'd spent his life building things that glittered, towers, malls, companies, but none of them shined. She ate slowly, careful not to make crumbs on the table. When she finished, she looked up at him. "Are you the boss of this place?" He nodded. "I own it." Her brow furrowed. "All of it? Even the fountain?" "Yes." "And the candy store?" He smiled slightly. "Even that?" Her eyes widened. "Wow. You must be very rich." He didn't answer immediately. He looked around at the chandeliers, the glass, the marble. "Rich," he repeated quietly. "Maybe not the way that matters." She tilted her head, not quite understanding. He changed the subject. "Do you have a favorite place to go?" Zara thought for a moment. "The library. It's warm there. And I like the smell of books. They smell like adventures." He smiled faintly. "You read a lot." "When I can. Some books have pictures of castles. I like those." Adrian leaned back, studying her, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke, the way she talked about castles like someone who'd already lived inside a fairy tale and walked out wiser. When the bill arrived, Adrian signed it quickly and stood. "Come on," he said. "Where are we going?" He nodded toward the mall's atrium, where a massive Christmas display shimmered under 1,000 golden lights. She gasped when they reached it, a forest of twinkling trees, snowflakes hanging from invisible wires, toy trains circling the base. Adrian watched her face light up. Her reflection danced across the glass ornaments, joy, pure and simple. "It's like magic," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "Maybe it is." She turned to him. "Do you believe in magic?" He thought for a long moment before answering. "I used to. Then I started believing in numbers instead." "That sounds boring," she said honestly. He laughed, genuinely, for the first time in years. The sound surprised even him. A nearby photographer noticed them and raised his camera. Adrian's assistant moved quickly to intervene, but Adrian waved him off. "Let him," he said softly. "She deserves to remember this." Zara grinned, clutching her teddy bear tight as the flash went off. In that photo, captured beneath golden lights, a billionaire looked almost human again, and a small girl looked like hope in motion. Before she left, she handed him a cookie shaped like a star. "For when you forget to smile." He accepted it carefully, as though it were something sacred. She started to walk away, but turned back. "You didn't tell me your name." "Adrian." She smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Adrian." And then she was gone, skipping toward the exit, her laughter soft as bells, leaving behind nothing but warmth in a place built of stone and glass. Adrian watched her disappear through the doors. The echo of her footsteps lingered long after she was gone. He looked down at the star-shaped cookie in his hand, then at the marble in his pocket. Two small things. One impossible feeling. For the first time in his life, Adrian Cole didn't rush to a meeting. He just stood there, under the golden light, realizing that maybe, just maybe, kindness was the rarest form of wealth. That night, the city slept under a drizzle. Neon lights shimmered through the mist like restless ghosts. Adrian sat alone in his penthouse office, 50 floors above the quiet chaos below. The same office where deals worth billions were signed. But tonight, the papers on his desk stayed untouched. He stared at the small star-shaped cookie on the table. It was wrapped in a napkin, its edges broken from her tiny fingers. And beside it, the glass marble. Smooth. Cold. Silent. He'd told himself 100 times to forget the girl. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw her smile, small, brave, too grown for her age. He opened his laptop and searched his own security feed, the mall's main lobby from earlier that day. There she was. Zara. Walking hand in hand with a woman in a faded coat. They stopped at the bakery. She tugged the woman's sleeve, smiling. Then, a cut in the footage. Another time stamp. Another day. The woman didn't come back. Adrian frowned. He zoomed in. The woman's face flickered on screen for half a second before the camera refocused. Something about her features, the sharp chin, the tired eyes, stirred a buried memory. He clicked through files until he found what he was looking for, old employee records. Years ago. Lila Ward. Custodian, West Plaza. Terminated after the mall renovation project. His chest tightened. The last name hit him like a blow. Ward Street. Near the old community flats. The car rolled through the sleeping city. Streetlights flickered over puddles. The roads narrowed, turned rough. Finally, they stopped in front of a small, weathered apartment block. Paint peeling, lights dim. Adrian stepped out. The air smelled of rain and old brick. He climbed the stairs slowly, each creak louder than the last. A door at the end of the hallway bore a faded name tag, L. Ward. He knocked once. Twice. No answer. He was about to turn away when a neighbor's door opened, an older woman with tired eyes and a scarf around her head. "You looking for Lila?" she asked. Adrian nodded. "Yes. I'm an old friend." Her face softened, then fell. "Then you should know. Lila passed away 3 months ago." The words landed like stones. "She got sick," the woman continued. "Didn't want anyone's help. Spent everything to keep Zara in school. The little one's been with her aunt since." Adrian swallowed hard. "Her aunt, where is she now?" "Down the block, apartment 6B. She's doing her best, but times are rough." He thanked her quietly and walked down the corridor. Each step felt heavier. When he reached apartment 6B, the door was cracked open, warm light spilling into the hall. He heard laughter, soft, small, familiar. Zara. He stood at the doorway, unseen. Inside, Zara sat at a wobbly kitchen table, coloring a picture. Her aunt, a young woman in her late 20s, was folding laundry nearby. The walls were bare except for a few photos taped beside the window. One of them caught his eye. It was Daniel Ward. His old partner. Standing beside a younger version of Adrian, both smiling in front of a construction site. He hadn't known anyone still kept that picture. Zara's aunt noticed him and froze. "Can I help you?" Adrian stepped forward, hat in hand. "My name is Adrian Cole." Her eyes widened. She looked at Zara, then back at him, then lowered her voice. "You're him." Zara looked up. "Mr. Adrian?" She gasped, running toward him. "You came." He knelt down, smiling faintly. "I said I would, didn't I?" The aunt crossed her arms. "Why are you here?" Adrian hesitated. "Because I owe your family an apology." She frowned. "For what?" "For everything," he said quietly. "For the years I spent chasing profits while your sister lost her home, her health, her husband. I didn't look back when I should have." Her face softened, but the hurt lingered in her eyes. "You can't fix the past, Mr. Cole." "I know," he said. "But maybe I can fix what's left." He handed her a card, plain, white, embossed with his name. "That's my direct line. No assistants. No offices. If Zara ever needs anything, you call me." The aunt looked at him for a long moment, unsure what to say. Zara tugged on his sleeve. "Do you still have my marble?" He smiled faintly, pulling it from his pocket. "Always." Then you have to keep it, she said firmly. It's for when you forget you have a heart. He laughed softly, but his eyes glistened. As he left the apartment, the drizzle had turned to steady rain. He paused under the flickering streetlight and looked up at the cloudy sky. For the first time, he didn't feel like a man who owned the world. He felt like a man who'd been given a second chance to belong to it. He pulled the marble from his pocket, holding it up against the light. In its tiny glass world, the reflection of the streetlight shimmered, small, warm, and impossibly bright. Morning light spilled through the glass walls of Adrian's office, painting gold streaks across steel and silence. For years, that view, the skyline, the power, the ownership, had been enough. Now, it just looked empty. He stood there, holding the marble in his palm, feeling its cool surface press into his skin. Somewhere out there, that little girl was coloring drawings in a small kitchen with cracked tiles. And somehow, that felt more real than anything he owned. 2 days later, Adrian's black car rolled up outside the same narrow apartment complex. Zara spotted him through the window before he even knocked. "Mr. Adrian," she squealed, racing to the door barefoot. Her aunt opened it before she could fling herself into his arms. "You didn't have to come again," she said, half smiling, half cautious. "I wanted to," Adrian replied. "Actually, I was hoping you'd both come with me today. Just for a few hours." Zara's eyes lit up. "Where?" "You'll see." The car hummed quietly as it left the city center behind, winding through tree-lined streets toward the Aurelia Foundation home, a new youth center Adrian had quietly been funding but had never personally visited. When they arrived, Zara gasped. A garden stretched before them, blooming with late spring flowers. Children laughed as they painted murals on the walls. Music floated in the air, not from speakers, but from a piano someone was actually playing. "This is your place?" Zara asked, eyes wide. He nodded. "It was supposed to be. But I never really came here. Not until now." She grinned and tugged his hand. "Then come on. I'll show you how to enjoy it." For the first time in years, Adrian found himself sitting on the grass. Zara handed him a paintbrush, bright blue dripping down the handle. "Just draw something," she said. "Doesn't have to be perfect." He hesitated. His hands were used to signing checks, not painting walls. But then he looked at her, sleeves rolled up, cheeks smudged with green paint, eyes alive, and smiled. He dipped the brush and painted a simple shape, a circle. She leaned closer. "It's a marble," she laughed. "You remembered." He chuckled. Hard to forget something that's small and stubborn. She stuck her tongue out at him playfully. "That means it's working. You're not grumpy anymore." Later that day, they sat under the shade of a maple tree. Zara took out a small, wrinkled sketchbook. "This is my favorite," she said, flipping to a page. It was a rough drawing, a tall man holding hands with a little girl in front of a giant mall. The sign above read Aurelia. "That's us," she said proudly. "Because you didn't let them take me." Adrian's throat tightened. "You drew this?" She nodded. "My mom used to draw with me. She said pictures keep people alive, even when they're gone." He swallowed hard. She was right. They sat quietly for a while, listening to the wind rustle through the trees. Then Zara looked up. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why do you look sad even when you smile?" The question cut deeper than she knew. He took a long breath. "Because I spent too many years chasing things that don't talk back." She tilted her head. "Like money?" He nodded softly. She thought for a second, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a tiny paper star. "Then you should have this. It's for wishes." He smiled. "And what should I wish for?" "Something that talks back." Days turned into weeks. Zara began visiting his office on weekends. The first time she entered, his staff looked bewildered, a barefoot little girl in a swirl of executives and glass. But Adrian waved off their stares. She brought life into the space, crayons on polished tables, laughter echoing through corridors that had never known warmth. One afternoon, she looked up at him while spinning in his leather chair. "You know, you should smile more. It makes you look like a real person." He laughed. "And what did I look like before?" "A robot," she said bluntly. "A really rich robot." He grinned, shaking his head. "Fair enough." One rainy evening, Zara fell asleep on the couch in his office while waiting for her aunt to pick her up. The city lights shimmered through the window, reflecting over her small form. Adrian covered her with his coat and sat quietly beside her. His gaze drifted to an old photograph on his desk, he and Daniel Ward shaking hands at the mall's opening ceremony years ago. Back then, life had been about power, control, legacy. Now, sitting beside Daniel's daughter, he realized legacy wasn't about what you built. It was about who you lifted. He whispered to the sleeping girl, "I should have been there for your father. For your mother. But I'll be here for you. Always." Outside, thunder rolled softly through the clouds, like an answer. By the end of the month, Adrian had transformed one of his companies in used wings into a community art center in Lila Ward's name. The ribbon-cutting day drew media, reporters, and investors, but Adrian's eyes only searched the crowd for one person. Zara stood beside him, holding scissors almost too big for her hands. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. "Let's do it together." The ribbon fell, and the cameras flashed. For the first time, the billionaire wasn't posing for headlines. He was standing inside one, the right kind. As the crowd clapped, Zara leaned closer and whispered, "See? You're not a robot anymore." He smiled. "No. I guess not. But in every story, warmth always comes before the storm." And as the cheers faded, Adrian's assistant approached quietly, eyes uneasy. "Sir," he murmured, "there's something you should see." About Zara's aunt. Adrian turned, the smile on his face faltering. The moment of peace shattered like glass. The bond was real, but the past wasn't done testing it. The applause from the ribbon-cutting ceremony still echoed in Adrian's ears as his assistant leaned closer. "Sir, we have a problem." Adrian's smile faded. "What kind of problem?" "It's Zara's aunt. She's been contacted by the press, and by Child Protective Services." Adrian's stomach tightened. "What? She didn't tell you?" "Apparently someone saw the girl here with you, multiple times, and made a report." Adrian's pulse quickened. "A report for what?" The assistant hesitated. "For possible exploitation. They're saying you've been using the girl as some kind of PR tool." Adrian froze. The sound of laughter and music from the event drifted in from outside, but it felt distant now, unreal. By the time he reached Zara's apartment that evening, the atmosphere had changed. Reporters crowded the street, cameras flashing like lightning. "Mr. Cole. Did you adopt the child without authorization? Are you trying to clean your image after the Ward scandal? Is this your new publicity stunt?" He ignored them all, pushing through the noise. When Zara's aunt opened the door, her eyes were red. Inside, Zara sat on the couch, clutching her teddy bear, confused, scared. "What's going on?" Adrian demanded. Her aunt's voice trembled. "They came this afternoon. CPS. They said it's not safe for her to keep spending time with you without legal guardianship." He blinked. "I've never done anything but help." "I know," she whispered. "But they don't. Someone's twisting things." He ran a hand through his hair. "Who?" She looked away. "I don't know. But, they said they'll be back tomorrow. With an order." That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. His penthouse, usually silent and comforting, felt suffocating. He poured a glass of whiskey, stared at the city, and tried to make sense of it all. The news channels were already running headlines. Billionaire and orphan, a PR love story or something darker. Aurelia Empire faces new scrutiny over child welfare scandal. He switched off the TV. His reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, the same calm eyes, now filled with something he hadn't felt in years, fear. Morning came heavy and gray. He arrived at the apartment early, but a white government van was already parked outside. A woman in a neat blazer stood by the door with a clipboard. "Mr. Cole?" she asked coldly. "I'm with Child Protective Services. You've been named in a complaint." Zara peeked from behind her aunt's leg, eyes wide with confusion. "Why are they mad at you?" she whispered. He knelt down, forcing a calm smile. "It's just a mix-up, sweetheart. We'll fix it." The CPS worker cleared her throat. "Sir, until this is resolved, you are to have no contact with the minor." Zara clutched his sleeve. "No. Please, don't go." The woman stepped forward. "Ma'am, please restrain your niece. Don't touch her." Adrian snapped. The tension cracked like thunder. Zara's aunt quickly pulled the girl into her arms. "It's okay, baby, it's okay," she whispered, though her own voice shook. Adrian backed away slowly, helpless, watching Zara's tears spill down her cheeks. "You promised," she sobbed. "You said you wouldn't forget me." His throat closed. "And I won't." But the door shut before he could say anything else. The days that followed were a blur of meetings, lawyers, and noise. Social media devoured the story, photos of him and Zara painting walls, headlines twisting innocence into manipulation. Every click. Every view. Every cruel comment. His board demanded he stay quiet. His PR team begged him to release a statement. He refused both. Instead, he drove, aimlessly, endlessly, past the mall, the bakery, the playgrounds. Each place whispered her laughter back to him like a ghost. Then came the call. Zara's aunt. Her voice was shaky. "They took her." "What?" "CPS came again this morning. Said they had to place her in temporary care until the investigation's over." Adrian gripped the phone so tight his knuckles turned white. "Where is she now?" "They wouldn't tell me. They said she's safe, that's all." He hung up, heart hammering. Safe? Nothing about this felt safe. He stormed into his office, ignoring his assistant's protests, and began pulling files, contacts, anything that could help him trace where she'd been taken. Hours blurred. When night fell, he sat among piles of documents, exhaustion pressing down on him like a weight. And then, in the quiet, he noticed something on his desk. A small envelope. No name. No address. Just a single word scrawled in a child's handwriting, promise. He tore it open with trembling hands. Inside was a folded piece of paper. A drawing, crude but clear. A man with gray hair. A little girl holding his hand. Above them, in a shaky line of crayon letters. "Even if they take me away, I know you'll find me." The paper blurred through his tears. He pressed it to his chest and whispered, "I will. I swear I will." The storm had come. The world had turned against him. But in that moment, Adrian Cole stopped being the billionaire the headlines described, and became something else entirely. A man on a mission to find a little girl who had given him back his heart. And he wouldn't stop until she was home again. Rain hammered the glass walls of Adrian's penthouse, but he didn't notice. The city below blurred into streaks of light and shadow, a reflection of the chaos inside him. He'd spent 3 days trying every connection, every legal channel, every favor money could buy. None of it worked. Zara had vanished into the system. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face pressed against that apartment door, crying out his promise. You said you wouldn't forget me. He hadn't. And he never would. At dawn, Adrian stood before his boardroom, 12 men and women staring at him like he'd lost his mind. I'm stepping down, he said simply. The room erupted. What do you mean, step down? You can't walk away from Aurelia. This scandal will destroy the company. Adrian raised a hand. Then let it. If a company can't survive without destroying people's lives, it doesn't deserve to. The chairman blinked. You'll lose everything you built. He nodded. Then maybe it's time to build something that matters. That afternoon, Adrian sold half his assets. His private jets, vacation properties, and penthouse suite were liquidated within days. The media called it madness. He didn't care. He moved into a modest apartment near the east side, not far from the foster care district. From there, he began working quietly with social workers, lawyers, and community leaders who actually cared. His name still opened doors, but now, he used it to push others through them. Nights were the hardest. He kept Zara's drawing taped to the wall beside his bed. Some evenings, when the noise of the city faded, he'd whisper to it like a prayer. I'm coming for you, kid. I promised. Then he'd go back to work, calling shelters, youth centers, and foster homes. One lead at a time. One faint trace of hope. Weeks passed. One evening, he received a call from a counselor at a rural foster center 3 hours outside the city. There's a girl here, the counselor said hesitantly. She doesn't talk much. Keeps drawing the same picture over and over, a man and a mall. Adrian's heart leapt. Her name? Zara Ward. He was already in his car before the call ended. The drive was long and winding. Storm clouds chased him across the highway, thunder rolling like a heartbeat. When he finally pulled up to the small foster facility, his headlights cut through the fog. The building was old but clean, paint peeling, a soft glow in one window. Inside, the matron looked up from her desk. You're here for Zara. He nodded, barely able to speak. She's in the art room, the woman said gently. But, you'll need permission to see her. The paperwork isn't cleared yet. I don't need permission to see my family, he said quietly. She hesitated, then stepped aside. The art room smelled like crayons and rain. Zara sat alone at a small table, sketching. Her hair was tied up messily, her shoes mismatched. But it was her. Adrian stood in the doorway, unable to breathe. She looked up. For a heartbeat, she froze. Then the pencil dropped from her hand. Mr. Adrian? He nodded, eyes already wet. Hey, sunshine. She ran to him, arms flinging around his waist. He dropped to his knees, holding her tight, tighter than he'd ever held anything in his life. I knew you'd come, she whispered into his coat. I told you I would. Tears mixed with the smell of rain and paper. The marble he'd carried for months pressed against his chest, a reminder of everything she'd given him. The matron stepped in quietly, eyes soft. She'll have to stay here until the case is reviewed. But, maybe there's another way. Adrian stood, still holding Zara's hand. What do you mean? She handed him a form. Temporary guardianship. It'll need approval from the regional director, but with your record, it's possible. He nodded. I'll make it happen. Days turned into hearings, paperwork, and endless interviews. Every question cut deep. Why do you care about this child? What's your motive? What are you trying to prove? And every time, Adrian gave the same answer. Because she's not just a child. She's my reminder that people matter more than profit. Eventually, the court approved temporary guardianship. When he returned to the foster center to tell Zara the news, she was waiting by the window, bag already packed, teddy bear in her arms. He knelt down and smiled. "You ready to come home?" She beamed. "I was always ready." As they drove back toward the city, Zara fell asleep in the back seat, the teddy bear clutched tight. Adrian glanced at her in the mirror, peaceful, safe, finally free. For the first time in months, he exhaled. He had lost everything the world said mattered, his company, his fortune, his image, but in the quiet hum of the car, he realized he'd gained the only thing that ever truly did. A reason to live. When they reached his new apartment, Zara ran to the window and pressed her palms against the glass. The city stretched out before her, glowing. "Wow," she whispered. "It looks like the stars came down to visit." Adrian smiled. "Maybe they did." She turned to him, eyes bright. "Can we make cookies again?" He laughed softly. "Only if you promise not to burn them this time." "I'll try," she said, giggling. And for a few brief hours, the world felt whole again. But not everyone was happy about it. Outside, in the dark, a black car idled across the street, tinted windows reflecting the faint light from Adrian's apartment. Inside, a familiar voice spoke quietly into a phone. "Yes. He's found her. And no, he doesn't know who filed the first report." The voice paused, cold and calculating. "Let's just say, this isn't over yet." The peace was fragile. The love was real. And the final test was still to come. Morning sunlight poured through the curtains, spilling across the small apartment like gold. Zara was still asleep, her head buried in the pillow, a faint smile playing on her lips. Adrian stood by the window, coffee untouched, mind restless. He had everything he wanted, she was safe, home, smiling again, and yet, something about that black car last night gnawed at him. Something wasn't finished. Later that day, a knock echoed at the door. When he opened it, a familiar face stood there, Ms. Blake, the same social services officer who had once taken Zara away. But this time, her tone was softer, almost apologetic. "Mr. Ward, we need to talk." He gestured her inside, cautious. Zara peeked from the hallway, clutching her teddy bear. Blake sighed. "You deserve to know the truth. The report that led to Zara's removal, it wasn't from a neighbor, or a random complaint. It was filed by someone inside your company." Adrian stiffened. "Who?" She hesitated, then handed him a thin file. Inside, a name he never expected. Harold Denton, his former CFO. His friend of 15 years. The room went still. Adrian lowered the file slowly. "He used a child to destroy me." Blake nodded grimly. "He framed it as a welfare concern, said you were manipulating the system to exploit a vulnerable minor for publicity. It was enough to trigger an emergency removal order." Zara's eyes welled. "He's the reason they took me away." Adrian crouched beside her, voice trembling but calm. "Not anymore, sunshine. No one's taking you again." He turned back to Blake. "Where is he now?" "Running your company," she said quietly. "He's been giving interviews, painting you as unstable." Adrian exhaled slowly. The betrayal cut deeper than he imagined. But rage wasn't what filled him, it was clarity. He knew what he had to do. That night, he put on the one thing he hadn't sold, his last tailored black suit. Zara watched him button the jacket, eyes wide. "Are you leaving?" she whispered. He knelt beside her. "Just for a little while. There's something I need to fix. For both of us." She took his hand and pressed something into his palm, her small marble. "For luck," she said. He smiled faintly. "Always." The next morning, the world watched as Adrian Ward walked back into the glass tower he once ruled. Reporters swarmed outside the Aurelia building. Cameras flashed. Inside, every employee fell silent as he entered the lobby, the man who'd given up billions now walking through like a ghost of their conscience. When he reached the top floor, Harold was already waiting. "Adrian," Harold said smoothly, rising from his chair. "Didn't expect to see you back so soon. What brings you here?" "Guilt." Adrian studied him quietly. "You betrayed me." Harold laughed. "I saved the company. You were throwing it away over a child. Now Aurelia's stronger than ever." Adrian's voice sharpened. "You mean dirtier than ever." He stepped closer. "You used a little girl to destroy me, to destroy what was left of my name. And you thought that would make you powerful?" Harold sneered. "It worked, didn't it?" Adrian reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folder. "Not anymore. I've been working with an investigative team. We found your shell accounts, the ones tied to the offshore fraud deals you buried under R&D. Harold's smile faltered. "You can't prove anything." Adrian set the file on the desk. "I already did." Behind him, 2 federal agents entered the room. "You're under arrest, Mr. Denton." Harold's eyes widened. You set me up." Adrian shook his head. "No, Harold. You set yourself up. I just stopped letting money blind me." By afternoon, the news was everywhere. Former CFO arrested in fraud scandal, Adrian Ward cleared of all allegations. But Adrian didn't celebrate. He drove home quietly, tired but lighter than he'd felt in years. When he opened the door, Zara ran into his arms. "You came back." He lifted her up, spinning once before setting her down. "Told you I would." She looked at him with childlike certainty. "You look different." He chuckled softly. "Maybe I finally see things clearly." That evening, they walked to the park, the same one near the mall where they'd first met. The sky was deep orange, the air calm. Zara pointed at the sunset. "It's like the sky's on fire, but in a good way." He smiled. "That's what change looks like." They sat on a bench, sharing a warm silence. "Mr. Adrian," she asked quietly. "Do you think I could ever be part of your family? Like, forever?" He looked down, eyes misting. "You already are." Zara grinned, resting her head on his shoulder. For the first time, there was peace. Not the cold peace of money or success, but the soft, breathing kind that comes when you finally stop running. Weeks later, the adoption papers came through. Zara Ward. Her name, official. Her home, real. Adrian hung her first drawing on the wall, the one she made the day they met, 2 stick figures in front of a giant mall, one small, one tall, both smiling. Underneath it, Zara had written, "People are worth more than things." Adrian smiled. "You're right, sunshine." He placed the marble on the shelf beside it, a symbol of everything they'd both overcome. Months passed. The world still remembered him as the billionaire who walked away from billions. But he didn't care. His days were filled with laughter, burnt cookies, and bedtime stories. And sometimes, when Zara fell asleep beside him, he'd whisper quietly, "You saved me, kid. You really did." Then, one night, Zara stirred awake. "Mr. Adrian?" "Yes, sunshine. Can we help other kids too?" He paused, and smiled. "Yeah. We can." And so began the Ward Foundation for Forgotten Children, a legacy built not from marble and glass, but from mercy and second chances. The man who once had everything now had the one thing he never knew he needed. Love that couldn't be bought. The camera opens on a quiet morning, the kind that feels like peace. A kettle whistles softly. Sunlight spills through tall windows, washing over photographs lined along a shelf. One frame stands out, Adrian and Zara at a charity event, her in a little white dress, him kneeling beside her, both holding a sign that reads, "Every child deserves a chance." The world had changed for them, slowly, beautifully, irreversibly. Inside the newly opened Ward Foundation for Forgotten Children, volunteers buzzed around, young faces from rough beginnings, all now part of something bigger. Zara, now wearing a small name badge that read Youth Ambassador, stood proudly at the front desk, handing out warm meals to kids her age. A reporter approached, camera ready. "Zara, can you tell us what this place means to you?" She thought for a moment, her small hand still busy tying a gift ribbon. "It means, nobody gets left behind anymore." The reporter smiled. "And what do you want to be when you grow up?" Zara grinned. "Like Mr. Adrian. But maybe with better cookies." Laughter rippled through the room. At the back, Adrian watched quietly, hands in pockets, eyes glistening. Not pride, something deeper. Peace. Later that evening, the foundation hall was empty. Adrian stood alone, gazing at the marble floor, polished, reflective, almost too familiar. It looked like the mall that day. The day everything began. He remembered the scream. The teddy bear. The injustice. And he realized, maybe it wasn't a coincidence. Maybe he was meant to be there. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the tiny marble Zara once gave him, the same one he'd carried ever since. He rolled it gently across the table. It caught the light, scattering tiny stars onto the ceiling. He smiled. Sometimes, the smallest things change the biggest lives. Outside, Zara waited by the car, her teddy bear, newly stitched, newly loved, tucked under her arm. "Ready to go home, Mr. Adrian?" she asked. He smiled, locking the doors behind him. "Always, sunshine." They walked down the foundation steps together, her little hand tucked into his. The camera panned upward, the golden letters above the entrance glowing in the sunset. Ward Foundation, home for second chances. Soft piano music fades in. The scene slows, moments from their journey flash by in gentle motion. The mall. The ice cream melting on marble. The teddy bear falling. The hug after the reunion. The laughter over burnt cookies. The marble rolling under warm light. Adrian's voice comes in softly, not narration, more like a letter to his younger self. "I used to think success was about building higher walls. But she showed me that love breaks them down. I used to chase profit. Now I chase purpose. And I learned that sometimes, the richest people aren't the ones with money, but the ones who finally choose to care." The music swells, strings, then silence. The screen fades to black. White text appears, calm and simple. Sometimes the smallest voice can change the loudest world. A pause. Then the gentle call to action. If this story touched your heart, share it. Let kindness travel further than pain. Black fades to color again, a quiet park at dusk. Zara and Adrian sit on a bench, feeding birds. She turns to him suddenly, serious. "Mr. Adrian?" "Yes, sunshine." "What if I never screamed that day in the mall?" He smiles faintly. "Then maybe. I never would have heard what my heart was missing." Zara giggles. "You talk weird sometimes." He laughs softly. "You'll understand one day." The camera pulls back slowly, wide shot of the park glowing under golden light. Two silhouettes, one tall, one small, sitting side by side. The world finally feels right.